In the summer of 2019, a heartwarming act of kindness unfolded on a New York to Los Angeles flight, one that no one could have expected from a famous Hollywood star. Keanu Reeves, renowned for his roles in The Matrix and John Wick, gave up his first-class seat to an elderly woman struggling to navigate the aisle. What happened next left everyone on board speechless. So when the first-class passengers were called aboard, Keanu, casually dressed in a black hoodie and jeans, quietly settled into his seat near the window. Passengers began whispering as they realized the actor was on board. Just moments later, an elderly woman in her mid-80s boarded the plane. She gripped her handbag tightly and shuffled down the aisle with the help of a cane. It was evident that she was struggling to maintain her balance in the narrow aisle, and a few passengers nervously looked away, unsure how to assist. Keanu, observing the situation, stood up without hesitation. With a warm smile, he approached the woman and softly said, "Ma'am, why don't you take my seat? It's more comfortable up front." The woman, visibly surprised, looked up at him and replied, "You don't have to do that, son," her voice trembling. Keanu gently insisted, helping her settle into his seat. The cabin fell silent as passengers watched in awe. The flight attendant, deeply moved by Keanu's kindness, offered him an alternative first-class seat, but he politely declined. "I'll sit in the back," he said with a smile. Keanu made his way to the economy section and took a middle seat between a young couple traveling with a fussy toddler. Instead of growing frustrated, Keanu engaged with the little boy, making funny faces and even handing him a pen to draw on the back of an air sickness bag. The child's cries soon turned to laughter, and the grateful couple thanked Keanu profusely. But the story took another unexpected turn. As the flight prepared for takeoff, the elderly woman in first class began to feel faint. She signaled the flight attendant, whispering, "I'm feeling faint." The crew immediately sprang into action, requesting assistance from any medical professionals on board. Hearing the commotion, Keanu stood up and made his way forward. Though not a doctor, Keanu remained calm, his years of action movie experience seemingly preparing him for emergencies. He knelt beside the woman, holding her hand and speaking soothingly to keep her conscious. Her breathing stabilized, but her condition was serious enough for the crew to consider an emergency landing. Keanu stayed by her side, gently asking her name and telling lighthearted stories to keep her alert. "Lillian," she whispered weakly, explaining that she was on her way to see her granddaughter, whom she hadn't seen in 5 years. Keanu smiled, reassuring her, "Well, Lillian, you have to stay strong for her. What's her name?" Before Lillian could answer, another passenger from the row ahead recognized her. "Wait a minute," the man said, leaning over. "Are you Lillian Adams, the poet?" The woman nodded faintly, her lips curling into a soft smile. "That was a long time ago," she said. Keanu looked at her with newfound admiration. "You're that Lillian Adams? My mom used to read The Whispering Sky to me when I was a kid." As the realization spread through the cabin, passengers began to murmur in awe. Some even pulled out their phones to search her name. But before anyone could fully grasp the moment, Lillian's condition worsened. Keanu knelt beside her, holding her hand as her breathing became labored. The flight attendants rushed to bring oxygen, but Lillian's frail hand gripped Keanu's. "I don't think I'll make it to see her," she whispered. "But promise me something, Mr. Reeves." Keanu's chest tightened. "Lillian, don't talk like that. You're going to make it. We'll get you there," he reassured her, but she insisted, her voice barely audible. "Promise me you'll tell her I love her. Tell her I tried." The cabin was eerily quiet, save for the hum of the plane's engines. Keanu placed his hand gently over hers. "You'll tell her yourself, Lillian. You've come this far, and you're not giving up now." Lillian gave a slight nod, though her strength seemed to be slipping away. The pilot soon announced an emergency landing at the nearest airport, but it was still 20 minutes away. Every second felt like an eternity. Keanu stayed with Lillian, asking her about her granddaughter to keep her alert. "What's her name? What's she like?" he asked softly. "Lillian? Her name is Amelia. She's just like her mother. Kind. So kind. She loves sunflowers. I was bringing her a gift." Lillian gestured weakly to her small carry-on bag. Keanu unzipped it carefully, revealing a worn, leather-bound notebook filled with yellowed, handwritten poems. "This is for her," Lillian whispered. Keanu's throat tightened as he flipped through the fragile pages. "Lillian, this is beautiful. Amelia will treasure it forever," he said, his voice breaking, "but you're gonna hand it to her yourself, okay?" Lillian nodded weakly, her eyes beginning to fade. A man in the aisle seat, a doctor named Harris, knelt beside Keanu and shook his head slightly, signaling the gravity of the situation. When the plane finally landed, paramedics rushed on board to carry Lillian off the plane. She clung weakly to Keanu's hand. "Thank you for being here," she whispered. Keanu followed her to the ambulance, refusing to leave her side. At the hospital, Lillian was stabilized but remained unconscious. Keanu waited anxiously in the hallway, the leather notebook still clutched in his hands. Hours passed before a nurse approached him. "She's awake and asking for you." Keanu entered her room, his heart pounding. Lillian's fragile body lay in the bed, her eyes flickering open. "Amelia," she murmured. "I'm sorry I couldn't make it." "I'll find her," Keanu promised. "Don't give up yet, okay? You still have a chance." But just as Lillian was about to respond, the heart monitor beeped faster and nurses rushed in. Keanu was ushered out of the room, his chest heavy with emotion. As he stood in the hallway looking down at the notebook, he made a decision. He would find Amelia and deliver Lillian's legacy. The following day, Keanu flew to Seattle carrying Lillian's notebook, hoping for a clue. After days of searching, he found a photograph of a young girl with a bouquet of sunflowers. It was labeled "My Sunshine, Amelia, 1998. This led him to a community center where Amelia volunteered. When he met Amelia, he handed her the notebook and she broke down in tears, realizing her grandmother had been trying to reconnect. When they rushed to the hospital, Amelia arrived just in time to hold her grandmother's hand, whispering her love. As Lillian passed away, Amelia read one of her grandmother's poems aloud, filling the room with peace. Keanu remained by Amelia's side, offering quiet support through the grieving process. Together, they published a collection of Lillian's poems, which became a bestseller, touching hearts worldwide. In a moment of reflection, Amelia asked Keanu why he stayed, to which he replied, "Because you remind me of what's good in the world." As they worked together to preserve Lillian's legacy, both Amelia and Keanu found healing and inspiration. Amelia learned to live for love just as Lillian had always taught her. And as the seasons changed, Keanu too discovered a renewed sense of connection and purpose, reminded that love never truly leaves us. It simply finds new ways to shine.